Equivalence is not only about aperture. Everyone likes to compare f numbers to define how shallow the depth of field will be. However, they are leaving out one very important variable in the equation. That variable is focal length. Sure, a 45mm lens is still a 45mm lens on both full frame and micro four thirds. However, if you choose to use a 140mm lens instead of a 45mm lens, it will have an entirely different look. The depth of field will depend on the focal ratio used. However, the amount of compression in the background will increase with an increase in focal length. Now, this also means that you will have to step back further to get the same framing of the subject. However, that is just a reality of micro four thirds. It requires you to step back further from the subject in order to get the same framing because of the 2x crop factor. That is what actually increases the depth of field as compared to APS-C or full frame, and not just the difference in f number. There are plenty of f2.0 and below micro four thirds lenses. However, most of those lenses are in the shorter focal length range. It is much harder to get background compression with them and still get the framing you are used to. The big problem with micro four thirds is not that they don't have enough low f number aperture lenses. The problem is that they don't have enough large aperture long focal length lenses at the moment. However, that is understandable since the idea of micro four thirds is to have as small a package as possible, and bigger aperture means bigger and heavier lenses. That will all change this fall when they introduce the 35-100mm f2.8 lens. That will be the first full autofocus, longer focal length, bright micro four thirds lens with IS. It will cost a lot of money though, probably something close to $1,500. However, that lens will finally allow us to take moderately shallow depth of field shots indoors with image stabilization, something that could not be done before with any autofocus micro four thirds lens. The IS should also be very useful for videos as well. A lot of people look at images from the 12mm f2.0 and the 12-35mm f2.8 lenses and say that micro four thirds cannot do shallow depth of field. They are partially right. It cannot do it very well with those lenses. However, it can do it with longer focal length lenses. So if you really are concerned with getting a shallow depth of field, then you should already be in line for the 35-100mm f2.8 lens, or perhaps the Olympus 75mm f1.8 lens if you have a camera with in-body stabilization. If you think you are going to achieve the ultra-wide-angle, shallow depth of field look with micro four thirds, then you will be disappointed. Instead, you should be embracing the crop factor and rejoicing at the fact that you soon will be able to get almost telephoto framing in a super small and lightweight package with a 35-100mm lens. The closest I have come to the 35-100mm lens is this little-known jewel of a lens. It is a Konica 35-75mm f2.5 to f3.5 macro lens. It is definitely not one of the sharper lenses. However, it is extremely effective when combined with the macro capabilities and the 2x crop factor of micro four thirds. I bought up several of these lenses on eBay for about $35. However, they will be retired when the 35-100mm f2.8 lens comes out. I'm just not into manually focusing now that they have great autofocus large aperture lenses for micro four thirds.